Well, ladies and gentlemen, after 2 years since the first movie and many months of waiting since my predictions video, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is now officially playing in cinemas, and I once again saw it on release day here in the United Kingdom on December 5th. Now, before I get any further into this video, I would like to quickly make a disclaimer, even though I've likely put it in the title too, that this video will mostly be a spoiler review. So, if you have not yet seen the movie, then I do not recommend that you watch this video just yet. However, the start of this video will be a spoiler-free review, so if you want to see my spoiler-free thoughts on the movie, then do stick around for that. And then when we get on to the more spoiler talk of things, I will let you guys know. Now, bear in mind, since my previous review of the first movie, I do look back at it and realise that I may have given it a lot more praise than it should have gotten. By no means is it a bad film, of course, but at the time I didn't really look back at it thinking about the negatives of the movie as much as I should have, because I was just way too excited to have gotten a movie based on this franchise. And I'm excited that we've gotten a sequel on possibly the most popular and iconic of the games in the franchise. And before I get any further into this review, of course, I would like to make it known once again that this review is nothing more than my personal trademark opinion. So, just like last time, I'm gonna go ahead and get straight into answering the big question. Is this movie good? Or should I say, is it an improvement to the first movie? Yes! It is definitely an improvement, I do believe so. But is it good? Well, it's definitely not a bad film. However, this is a review coming from someone who is a die-hard fan of this franchise, so I am a part of the target audience that this film is catered for, so I am going to be enjoying this movie a lot more than general audiences will, and especially critics. But if I am being completely honest here, it's not a major improvement to the first movie, but it is an improvement for sure. Anyways, I'll now go into my non-spoiler review segment of the video, and I'll just talk briefly about the positives and the negatives of the movie, which I'll kick things off with the positives. First and most obviously, I've got to give some praise here for the animatronics. It is absolutely no surprise that I will. The animatronics have once again been produced by the Jim Henson's Creature Shop, and they have once again excelled at creating both the toy animatronics and the Wizards. They have done an incredible job at bringing them to life. They all look absolutely fantastic. The absolute spitting image of all of the original designs from the games, and their performances are all really, really well done. So, honestly, huge hats off to the team at Jim Henson's for all of the puppeteering work that they've done on these characters. And of course, the set designs for this film were amazing. The pizzeria location looked awesome as usual and found ways to make it both original and new to us fans, but also found ways to bring back and adapt the original location, mainly speaking the office. The opening of the movie, a really, really great way to start the film and perfectly set the tone. And I think I speak for a lot of us here when I say that the opening was possibly everybody's favourite part of the film. I know it was my favourite. The main cast, Mike, Abby and Vanessa, great performances from them all. Character dynamics between them all was definitely an improvement to the first. Mike and Abby, as they try to get over the events of the first movie, however, Abby doesn't want to let go of her friends, the FNAF 1 animatronics. And Vanessa trying to start fresh and forget about her father, William Afton, and everything he's done and what he's put her through. Not to mention, of course, William Afton himself, Matthew Lillard, done another awesome job at portraying the character. And we also had Skeet Ulrich come in for playing Henry Emily. And this time, Scott Cawthon, the creator of the franchise, was the only writer for this movie. Emma Tammy and Seth Kudbach, I hope I said his name right, did not step in to help write the movie for this one. It seems Scott wanted to take the reins and write the story himself, which, if there's anyone that's gonna know how to write the story of FNAF, it's obviously the creator himself. The soundtrack of the movie was, no surprise, another great part to the film. The 80s retro synthy vibe it had going on was really awesome, and it felt fitting and right for the movie, as well as more of the eerie moments in the film. Hats off once again to the Newton brothers, very, very good job. And speaking of eerie moments, The horror factor to this movie has definitely been amped up compared to the first film. There were a few moments that were definitely more tense and unsettling, which was nice to see that they listened to the feedback of the fans wanting more horror for this film. And some of the kills in this movie were 100% a big step up to the first, I would say. They really tried their hardest to push that PG-13 rating to its absolute limit.
Although here in the UK, we got it as rated 15.
Because there were some moments in this film that actually did make me think for a second, like, wow, this actually got approved as just PG-13? And lastly, it is a lot more action-packed. I wouldn't really say it follows the exact same formula of the first movie, where the first night is very tame, uneventful, and by the end is when it gets really interesting. It still takes a bit of a while to pick things up, but it definitely picks up a lot quicker and the stakes are raised and things kick off a lot sooner than the first film does. And now, real quick, we'll get on to the negatives of the film. One of the main things that really, I'd say, let this film down, unfortunately, was both the runtime of the movie and the pacing. The runtime of the film is shorter than the first one by only 6 minutes, which I know doesn't really seem like a lot, but there's a lot that could have been added in those extra 6 minutes to help flesh things out a lot more, and in general just improve the movie, as things do happen quite fast, and there is a lot that goes on in this film, which, I mean, if you look at it from my perspective as a fan, if you think about it, it is kind of fitting for this film to be very hectic and fast-paced, as the original game in FNAF 2 was also a very hectic, fast-paced game, with there being so many animatronics, there's a lot going on, you don't have time to process things in the moment, which is what makes that game so effective at being scary. But when I said about how things kick off sooner than the first, that's kind of also not really a good thing though, because when these events start happening, like, that's it. It's all going on way too fast. You've got Mike in the office trying to deal with the Wizards, you have Vanessa in the car dealing with Mangle, the toy animatronics are out in the streets hunting people down. It all just goes by so fast that you feel like it's over as soon as it started.
This may just be a coping mechanism for me though.
That, and then we'll also talk about plot holes. There were definitely a few plot holes in this movie that made me question some things, and this is both in terms of plot holes in the movie in general, but also plot holes in the sense that some things had been done differently as a new twist for the movie's universe, you know, not being 100% accurate to the game's lore, and I don't know how I probably feel about them just yet. I'm still processing that right now, so I don't know whether or not I like the decisions that were made for this. I know I just said one of the positives was about, like, the writing and such, but there were still some moments that had me there like, what? Really? There are some other nitpicks and negatives that I have with this film, but I'll get more into that later. But, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time where I have to stop you right here for a moment and warn you that it is now time for us to go through my bingo list and see what I was right about the film and what I got wrong. Meaning that we are about to enter
the spoiler zone.
So, I'm going to give you this chance now, guys, to click off of this video before I start talking about spoilers. Alright, hold on, here we go. The light's around here somewhere. There we go. Okay, welcome to the spoiler zone, everybody. It's now time for us to go through my bingo sheet of predictions for the movie to see how much of it I got right. Oh, and by the way, I did a little redecorating to the bingo sheet. Do you like it? Anyway, shall we begin with the first bingo prediction? I think we shall. First up was FNAF YouTuber cameos, or more specifically seeing if Markiplier will be in this movie. And technically yes, this is correct. We did get YouTuber cameos once again, but still no Markiplier. We are greeted once again to our icon of a taxi driver, Corey X Kenshin, who makes his return in the taxi, picking up Abby once again, but this time is greeted with a very delightful toy Chica in the car too. Which is also where they make reference to her black eyes and beakless appearance that she has in the games, which, I can't lie, I wish that we got more of that, because honestly, seeing her like that in real life is actually kind of unsettling, and I feel like they should have utilized that look a lot more. But anyways, back to YouTubers. We also see Razbowski and 8-Bit Ryan, and also Kellen Goff, the voice actor of Toy Freddy. And later on, when they show more of FazFest, there's another shot where you can then see Dorko and Baz walking through the crowd as well. But what about Mark? Still no appearance from him. Well, looking back at it now, it does make sense why he's still not appearing as a cameo in this movie, or in any of the others. First of all, he is still technically busy working on Iron Lung. By the time that I had been writing this script, he had just posted the final trailer for his film Iron Lung. But Mark also has stated that if he was to appear in the FNAF movie, for example, he doesn't want a cameo. He wants an actual role in the movie where he gets to have proper dialogue and he gets to have an actual presence in the film, as he believes that he has the capabilities to act, and I believe he does. So, hopefully in the third movie they will give Mark a role in the film where we get to see him more than just a cameo.
Blumhouse, Scott, Emma, Tammy, if any of you are watching this right now, please write that man a role.
Next on the bingo card was references to the 8-bit minigames. This once again includes Foxy Go Go Go, Give Gifts, Give Life, and Give Cake, which we didn't entirely get all that much. However, there was one little detail on the set of the pizzeria. In the office, there is a post-it note on the monitor that says, "You can't," which is a reference to the Save Them minigame, where it'll constantly tell you to save them, and right as the game is over, it'll then say, "You can't," which I do appreciate that little detail. But truth be told, I only noticed that detail from when the YouTubers went to visit the set of the movie in one of their vlogs. More specifically, I first saw it in Dorko's vlog. If we also want to go on a technicality, there was also one image they released of young Vanessa holding Charlotte's hand in the beginning of the movie, and there's an arcade machine that has a kind of like racing theme on it with the words "Ready, Set, Go," which for all we know might not be a reference at all, but it kind of, I guess, would link to Foxy Go Go Go. Maybe. I might just be coping again. And then next up was one prediction I thought at first sounded silly and didn't make a lot of sense, but that was that the toy animatronics will have voices in the film. And they did! But we knew that before the film even released when they announced the voice actors of the toys. Toy Freddy, voiced by Kellen Goff, Toy Bonnie, voiced by Matt Pat, and the most surprising casting of all, Megan Fox as Toy Chica. So, if we start off with Megan Fox as Toy Chica, it is very, very clear that they wanted to put that paycheck they gave her to good use, because good lord, Toy Chica was the most prominent animatronic in this movie. She had a lot of screen time in this film, and so many lines compared to the rest of the gang. And I think some fans in particular are probably going to be very happy that we got a lot of Toy Chica screen time. Then we'll move on to Matt Pat as Toy Bonnie, which honestly, if you didn't know before watching the movie that he'd be voicing him, you probably wouldn't be able to recognize that it is him. I think it was kind of obvious they weren't gonna make him just start talking like,
"Don't you tell me how many calories I need, bitch!"
But he's got a very high-pitched, almost like feminine-y voice going on for him, kind of resembling the same voice that he has in Special Delivery. But there is a slight difference to this. I mean, mainly because it's not the same voice actor, it's obviously Matt Pat trying to do this voice. And also, he didn't really have an awful lot of lines in this movie, and I mean, not a lot at all. And it is a little upsetting, because the fandom was really, really excited to see him voicing Toy Bonnie. Just for him to only talk around the start of the third act of the movie, and that's it. You don't really hear anything else from him again. Same goes for Kellen Goff voicing Glamrock Freddy. I mean, Toy Freddy. Okay, sorry, but you can't tell me that he didn't sound exactly like Glamrock Freddy does. I know Kellen was also the voice of him in Security Breach, but when they said Toy Freddy's voice would sound different to how he does in the games, this really caught me by surprise. The only times you hear Toy Freddy speak is when he's walking through FazFest, and when some kids invite him to join the costume contest, he says, "Oh, I'd love to join, but before that, I've got to rip some people's heads off." And then later on, when he's inside of someone's house, he talks a little more to the residents in there, very menacingly, and then immediately stops talking after he gets obliterated by a flying mangle. Next up was Scott Cawthon will be phone guy once again. No! No, of course he wasn't. There wasn't really an ample opportunity where they could have done something like that, to be fair, because Mike doesn't work at this pizzeria, and Vanessa's really the only one who helps him when he's in the office, but they communicate via radios. But hey,
all roads lead to Phone Dude for FNAF 3.
Next up was the wizards will look accurate to the games, which they very much did, but we knew this long ago that they were going to make them look accurate to the game's designs. Jim Henson's done a really fantastic job with these guys. They're all so well done and so menacing and unsettling. It's awesome to see them, but one complaint I do have, and I think I speak for a lot of people here, was that we didn't get to see them enough. We got very little time with the wizards. They done Withered Bonnie dirty, by the way. After they all get activated and go after Mike in the office, Freddy and Chica are seen down the hallway and Bonnie breaks open the vent to try come into the office. But Mike just shuts the vent back up and then that's it. Bonnie just decides to give up and not push it back open again. That, I will say, isn't really realistic at all. I don't think Bonnie would just give up like that, especially if he's in pursuit of Mike. But that was mostly all we saw from him. We never got to see Withered Bonnie walking around or doing literally anything else. All he did was push open a vent and that was it. I really do wish we could have seen more from the Wizards. It's great we got them for sure, but I feel like they were underutilized a lot. But I do appreciate that they had Withered Freddy doing his iconic pose of him leaning down and reaching his hand out to Mike in the office, as well as Withered Chica having her arms in her iconic T-pose as she sneaks in the office before trying to grab a hold of Mike. Still on the topic of the Wizards though, next prediction was that we would see Withered Foxy's jump scare, which we did, but we got it in a new way, sort of. In the heat of the action of Mike trying to disable the wireless connection of the animatronics and all the Wizards one by one are coming after him, Foxy then comes into the office and lunges at Mike, about to strike him with his hook. And then Mike just manages to deactivate them before getting attacked. So yeah, Withered Foxy did jump at Mike, referencing his jump scare, but it wasn't the exact same way. He didn't run down the hallway to fully jump out at him, and to be honest, it wasn't really much of like a jump scare moment, if you know what I mean. Like, it was very like expected to happen, like it didn't happen so sudden or like spook us. It was just like, oh, he's going for him. Next up was references to the original game, which there was plenty of that, just from the set design alone. The pizzeria had a lot of reminiscing details to the original pizzeria. The music box, which also had the original music from the game, the prize corner, the carousel, Kids Cove, the paper pals, the drawings on the walls and the posters, and of course the office. However, some things weren't included, like the hallway ambience, the rare screens of Bonnie, Foxy and Freddy, not even the original jump scare sound from the games. They did it in the first film with Foxy when he ran down the hallway after one of the vandals, but this time there was no reference to the FNAF 2 jump scare. However, there was still plenty of details for fans to spot and enjoy. And then we have Easter eggs in majority of the movie, and yes, of course, there were definitely plenty of Easter eggs in this film. To name off the ones that I have spotted so far at least, at the beginning of the movie, in the pizzeria, we can see some arcade machines that are referencing fan game characters. We had Candy's Fishing and Pop Goes Adventure. And then there was one more arcade machine next to that called Freddy and Friends, which on the screen, you can see FNAF World. And we even got another fan game reference around the third act of the movie when Toy Bonnie is outside of a young girl's window. We can see a crib positioned right beside it, which is a reference to, of course, the joy of creation. Then we had the marionette saying one of her lines from Ultimate Custom Night.
I don't hate you, but you need to stay out of my way.
I noticed the sun clock from Sister Location and Mike and Abby's house, but that was mainly because of Dorka's vlog that I saw that. There was a bootleg Freddy Fazbear plush that when Mike pushed down on it, it started playing the which was a pretty funny reference, to be fair. That was quite good. This one, not really an Easter egg, but more of a surprise character appearance, and that was Freddie Carter's role, which was revealed to be Michael Afton. I will go over this later on. And then in the end credits of the movie, we hear a tape recording of Henry, and he says the same line as he does in Pizzeria Simulator.
Leaving Dead Space. 3, 2, 1.
And then a couple others I will also go over in a later prediction, but then there was one Easter egg that I was really not expecting, but was probably the craziest thing I'd ever seen, which, if this is the moment that John FNAF was talking about when he said in his first review that there was a moment where he got out of his seat because of how shocked he was, I get it. I almost did the same. And that was the surprise appearance of Circus Baby. What? So the context of her appearance was Vanessa trying to use Mike's dream theory, like he does in the first film, to try to overcome her trauma with her father, William Afton, and no longer wanting to be involved with him. But in this sequence, when we're in the POV of young Vanessa, she runs behind a clothes rack in Afton's workshop and turns around to find Circus Baby standing right beside her. And my goodness, she was the absolute spitting image of the character's design. This was not what I was going to expect at all. I was sat in that cinema just enjoying the sequence, getting more of William Afton, and I was just there like, oh, this is a pretty good sequence so far. Oh look, there's Toy Bonnie's head on the desk there, you can see. I genuinely couldn't believe my eyes when I first saw Circus Baby for the first time. It is actually insane that we got her in the second movie. I swear to God,
If this means that there are now possibilities for a Sister Location spin-off, then oh my goodness, I am here for it! I knew making that poster was a good idea.
Okay. After that tangent, we'll move on to the next one, which was Mangle biting somebody's head. Which, I mean, for all we know, it could have happened. Mangle only really killed one person in this film, and that was the camera guy from the Paranormal Investigators crew. So, it most definitely could have done that, but obviously we didn't directly see the kill, but we did see their limbs fall down piece by piece from the ceiling, which I thought was a very brutal kill, to be honest with you, and I was not expecting to see that. I can't lie, it was probably one of the best kills in the film. Next up, we then had flashbacks with the unwithered animatronics, which unfortunately we did not get that specifically. We got flashback sequences with the opening of the movie being set in 1982 when the original pizzeria was open. We then had the sequence with Vanessa in her house with Afton and Circus Baby, but we didn't get to see the Wizards in their fixed state. But we did get a little more of the Yellow Rabbit, which was really awesome to see. I was a huge fan of those moments. Next up was that we would get a cameo to either Shadow Bonnie or Shadow Freddy, which we did! Unfortunately, we didn't get anything from Shadow Freddy. However, it was honestly such a quick cameo that it was literally a blink and you'll miss it moment. But when Mike is in the office, he turns on the flashlight to check down the hall as he hears Balloon Boy in the distance once again. And as he turns it on, you can see Shadow Bonnie standing in the same corner of the office as he does in the game, right before Mike's flashlight shines him away. But holy crap, I honestly missed that moment when I first watched it. But after seeing some reviews and thoughts from friends and YouTubers, they made me aware of that moment, and I couldn't believe it. Now, this next prediction was probably the most anticipated one of them all, and that was that the movie will be scarier than the first one. And I can definitely say it was a lot scarier, for sure. You can definitely see that they really listened to the feedback from the first film, and they definitely got the tone of this one to be a lot creepier, eerier, more unsettling than the first film did. There were definitely a lot more jump scares in this, but honestly, like half of them, perhaps, weren't like intentional jump scares or moments that were supposed to make you scared. Some of these jump scares in this film were kind of like, fake out moments. Moments of just something appearing on the screen, not doing anything, but they just play a very loud sound to spook you. Which out of all of them, only one actually got me, which was when Mike enters the pizzeria through the supply closet and finds the Wizards in front of him on the floor. There was another moment in the film that did jump scare me a bit, and that was when McKenna Grace's character, being possessed by the puppet, jumped out at Vanessa when she was trying to talk to the puppet / Charlotte. That moment did get me a little bit. I kind of wasn't expecting it, but at the same time I was. But the scariest part of the film was definitely the marionette. With her being the only possessed character in the movie, they did a very good job at making her a really unsettling and creepy character to look at. But we will talk more about the marionette later in the video. Next up was the score / the soundtrack would be better than the first films, and I personally think it was better. As I mentioned in the spoiler-free segment of the video, I loved the synthy retro vibe that it had some of the time, and there were some good eerie moments in it too. But I liked the beginning of the movie the most. The music that plays throughout the little montage of the pizzeria being so lively and full of customers. It reminded me a lot of something to come out of like the FNAF World soundtrack or like the new high score song that plays in Ultimate Custom Night. There was something about it that felt almost nostalgic to me, but it felt like it belonged to FNAF. And then of course the opening credits playing the theme song from the first film, but with a slight twist to it to make it a newer rendition or remix of it, which was great, and it helped set the tone of the film with the eerier parts of it, which conveniently played every time the puppet would appear in the 8-bit sequence of this opening. But overall, the Newton brothers did another great job with the soundtrack for this film, 100%. Next up was Withered Bonnie punches somebody. I did change this one slightly because it was originally that he punches Mike, but I thought that was a bit too specific. But no. As I said earlier, all he did in the movie was get activated, push open a vent, and then was closed off, never to be seen again. So no, unfortunately, no T-Jock reference of him punching somebody was made here. Next prediction is actually a new one because it originally was Aunt Jane dying in the movie. I thought she was still alive at first and then thought she died, so I changed this prediction later on to Withered Foxy not falling for the Freddy mask. But it turns out she did live because it was mentioned in the movie that she got committed because she was talking so much about Freddy'S and spreading the horror stories of it so much that she had to be sent to a mental hospital, which is also partly to what led to the creation of the FazFest in the movie. Anyways, back to the new prediction of Foxy not falling for the mask. Low-key, I kinda wanted it to be like a 5 AM at Freddy's moment, where Foxy tries to tell the others that it isn't Freddy and it's Mike, but it still happened. Foxy didn't fall for the mask, and this actually made sense as to why he doesn't fall for it now, because the other Withereds look at Mike and they scan him, first seeing him as a threat, but after he puts on the mask, they scan him again and recognize him as an animatronic because of the Freddy mask, so then they give up going after him. But Foxy's scanning / facial recognition is faulty, so it fails to scan the Freddy mask and it still goes after Mike. Honestly, I think that's a very good reason as to why he never fell for it in the games too, that he's so broken and busted that he just doesn't see the Freddy mask as an animatronic. I did like that detail. I feel like that perfectly explains why Foxy always jump scares you even if you have the mask on. Now, the next one was that the puppet will give life to the animatronics, which I'm not 100% sure what to say for this one, because technically she did, as she was the one in control of the toy animatronics, controlling Toy Chica to lure Abby to help set them free so they could escape the pizzeria, using her to complete her goals in the movie. So in a sense, yes, the animatronics were brought to life by the puppet, but not in the same way that she does in the first game, giving them the gift of life, and instead using them to her advantage to cause carnage and attack people. But we will talk about that in a moment, because the next prediction we had was we would see Jeremy Fitzgerald as a cameo or reference, which there was not. We did not get any Jeremy in this movie. The closest we have is Mike's friend Jeremiah. But that's about it. Hoping our surprise character would be Jeremy, but instead it was Michael Afton, which we knew it was him when he first introduced himself and said to McKenna Grace's character to call him Michael. It is very obvious by then that he's Michael Afton, but also because of his hella devious eyebrows that this man kept giving. You just know he's up to something, but by the time he comes back in the third act of the movie and introduces himself to Mike, revealing his full name to him, Michael Afton, it's tried to be like one of those big reveal moments in the movie where everyone would go crazy and be like, oh my god, no way, it's really him. But I don't feel like it really landed all that well, because we kind of knew it was going to be Michael Afton the second he first introduced himself, so it felt kind of bland or stale at that point. Like, it didn't really hit the same. And then next up we had Mike being scared of Balloon Boy, which I would say he was scared of him, to be fair. Mike falls into the river ride and then Balloon Boy chases after him in the water and stares at him just as he escapes. Then there were several times that we could hear Balloon Boy laughing in the distance, saying his original lines from the game, constantly putting Mike on edge and getting creeped out. But then when he finally shows up in the office, Mike at this point has had enough of him and straight up ripped his head off.
I want to rip off Balloon Boy's head too. Absolute cinema.
Now, this next prediction was one I was really hoping would be true, and that was that the puppet will be friendly to Mike, Abby, and Vanessa, but as it turns out, I was very wrong in this instance. The puppet was not friendly at all. And, you know, I do understand why they had to do this new change with making Charlotte or the puppet evil in this movie, as it would make sense somewhat with her being the only spirit in the location. But obviously, if you know the actual backstory to Charlie or Charlotte, she is the total opposite in the games. The puppet has always been the protector and the kind soul who looked out for others, especially to those who fell victim to William Afton. But instead, the puppet has new motives and wants to hurt people because when she was alive, she was always ignored and left alone and no one was there for her. Or should I say,
No one was there to lift you up into their arms, the way you lifted others into yours.
So looking back at it now, I understand why they had to do this change with the puppet, but I'm just not 100% sure whether or not I'm on board with it yet. I can appreciate that in doing so, this made her the scariest character in the movie and how she goes on to possess people in this film, mostly McKenna Grace's character, and it was a really cool and unsettling idea to have her makeup on her face, glowing white pupils, and the rest of her body still having that slim puppet build, except her head still being human. It gave a very creepy, slender-like appearance. And honestly, I wasn't expecting that, so I kinda appreciate that for the scare factor of the movie. Next up is a big one here, and that is that we will see the backstory to the puppet / Charlotte, which we most certainly did. This was entirely what the opening sequence was all about. Charlotte at the pizzeria with young Vanessa, she sees the yellow rabbit luring a child to a back room away from the crowd and tries to go after him to save the child. And she succeeds in saving this child. She manages to rescue him and carry him back to the stage while the yellow rabbit is chasing after her. And as Charlotte gets to the stage, she collapses onto the trapdoor to find 3 stab wounds on her back, and then falls through the trapdoor to then reveal that the marionette is carrying Charlotte in her arms. Pure FNAF poetry right there. This whole sequence,
Absolute cinema.
however, I do have some minor nitpicks with this sequence, and one of which is when Charlotte sees this child get taken by the yellow rabbit, she starts running around asking for help from the adults / parents of the children, trying to tell them that there is someone who's been taken and they need help, but they all ignore her. And this is partly to the reason of why the puppet has these evil motivations and wants to hurt adults in the film, because she was constantly ignored, which honestly is kind of unrealistic here. And this is where there's some dialogue that I feel is a little poor, because realistically, if you do see a child running up to you begging for help and saying somebody's in trouble, you're not gonna tell them to shut up and leave them alone, now are you? But in doing so, this means that Charlotte has no choice to go on her own to save this child. This then leads to another nitpick I have, because when Charlotte finds Afton and the child in the kitchen / dishwashing room, Afton is by the tap washing something up, and the child is laying on the floor. At first I thought she was too late to save this child and Afton had already killed him, and was by the sink washing the blood off of his knife. But it turns out the child had not even a scratch on him, and was just for some reason having a little snooze on the floor. I'm not really sure what was going on there. It looked really clear that he had been finished off by the yellow rabbit, but instead just wanted to put him to sleep. I mean, maybe it was in the sense that if the child was unconscious, he wouldn't be screaming and drawing attention to him when he's doing his deed. I don't know, but it didn't fully feel right with me. But in doing so, this allowed Charlie to escape with the child and lead to a very good scene with Charlotte running down the hall. The camera is at a tilted angle and the yellow rabbit is running after her. I will say this was a very cool moment and felt very tense to see and hear the heavy footsteps of the yellow rabbit draw closer and closer to Charlotte, making you think whether or not she'll actually get out in time or if it'll be too late, which we then saw he already got her 3 times in the back. I can't lie, honestly, I think this was probably the best part of the film. It really did set the tone straight away and it was just amazing to see it be done. I will say this was though a new interpretation for Charlotte's death, as in the games she's killed in a back alleyway to a Freddy'S pizzeria location, and then the puppet designed by her dad Henry Emily breaks out of the pizzeria to find her as he built it for her to protect her. But this was definitely still a very, very good way to show off this very important event in the FNAF timeline. I still think they did a very good job with portraying this sequence. But then the next prediction wasn't really movie related, but it was that there would be a scare maze attraction at Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios, which there was. Except it wasn't based on the second movie, since it hadn't been released yet, so it was based on the first movie. I unfortunately never got to experience the maze, but I've seen plenty of footage of people walking through the maze, and it did look fantastic. I really hope they do it again next year for the second film, or bring this one back because of how popular it was. Next prediction was that It's Been So Long by the Living Tombstone will play in the credits. At this point, it's kind of obvious that they would play it in this one too, but yep, yes they did, they played the song. There's not much else to say other than that.
I'm already betting on it right now that in the third movie, they're going to be playing Die in a Fire in the credits.
And now we are at the penultimate prediction, which was Withered Golden Freddy having the least screen time. Which, technically, I am right, because Withered Golden Freddy wasn't even in the movie! But we did see an appearance of the child possessing the OG Golden Freddy at the end of the movie, when we had that Avengers Endgame ending type stuff with the OG gang coming back one more time to save Abby, Mike, and Vanessa from the toy animatronics and tear them all apart before deactivating, because they weren't designed to leave the pizzeria. And then the spirits of the children were able to finally move on, which I can't lie, I didn't think they would come back, because the ending of the first film felt satisfying enough for them to have moved on after, quote marks here, killing William Afton, bringing their killer to justice. But no, they had one final scrap with the toy animatronics, and then that's it. They don't even get their happiest day, which is one of the mini games that is kind of essential for the story, but they didn't do that. Thing is as well, they very much could have pulled off having Withered Golden Freddy in the movie, because look at this BTS image of the movie. They had Withered Freddy's head on a stick. Just the head. So you're telling me it was possible for them to have Withered Golden Freddy do the floating head thing in the hallway? But one of my main complaints or nitpicks with this film was the ending. It did feel very abrupt, and I'm also not sure if I liked this cliffhanger ending, with the puppet sneaking back into the house and possessing Vanessa after Mike just decided to no longer want to be around her anymore because she wasn't telling him all of these things that happen in the movie throughout, which I feel like she really should have been more open with him to all of that, because if she really wanted to let go of her past and not be affiliated with her father anymore, she needed to talk about it, she needed to let it all out and have Mike know all these things and know how to help her. You know, tell him that she has a brother named Michael, and also, wink wink, nudge nudge, tell him perhaps that she had a younger sister named Elizabeth and a younger brother named Evan, who perhaps potentially died at an older Fredbear's family diner. Please, I want Fredbear! But yeah, I don't know if I'm fully satisfied with this ending. Something about it feels a bit off to me for this one, but I know it's all to set up the third and final movie, but I feel like there could have been a better way to approach it. Maybe with the puppet possessing Vanessa, this could potentially lean into her being bad for part of the movie, and potentially leaning towards her becoming Vanny? I'm not sure, honestly, but I still don't know if I'm fully on board with this ending. I don't know how I feel about it. And speaking of endings, the final prediction I had was that the end credit scene would be a reveal of Springtrap, and it most definitely was. Well, actually, it was the mid-credits scene, but never mind. It was a very windy and stormy night. Sounds like I'm starting a story here. There's 3 teenagers or young men that enter the franchise Freddy's location where the first movie is set, and they say to look around and get whatever they can find nostalgic for their haunted house attraction.
Fazbear Frights, I see.
To which one of them in the distance shouts that he found a secret room, and then goes to say, "I think I found one. I found a real one."
Which is the line that Phone Dude says in FNAF 3. I'm so happy we got that reference.
But it doesn't end there. They grab a tarp to cover Afton with, and they go off to get their dolly cart to wheel him out of the pizzeria, and then is when we get our first look at Springtrap underneath the tarp, and his eyes starts to flicker on as he comes back to life now that Golden Freddy isn't containing him anymore. Honestly, there couldn't have been a more perfect setup for the third movie than that. That was genuine perfection.
Absolute cinema!
But there we have it. After all my rambling for this movie and what I thought of it, we finally made it to the end. Overall, I am still satisfied with this movie. I can still appreciate it for what it is, and I had a good time seeing it in cinemas. It is, however, still as flawed as the first one. There were plot holes in it that were holding it back, the shorter runtime as well. Which, by the way, one plot hole I did forget to mention was how the puppet, when she possessed McKenna Grace's character, after she was finished with her, we see her dead body in the supply closet with the Wizards, but then when she possesses Abby for a moment, the puppet escapes from her body and she's perfectly fine, feels a little sick, but otherwise completely okay. Is it because, you know, if she possesses them for too long, then they die? Did she specifically kill McKenna's character? Like, I don't think there was really much explanation towards that. That, and also Michael Afton's motives in this, are very different to the game, as most of the time, throughout the games, you are playing as Michael, going to each location to try and fix his father's misdeeds. But in the movie universe, Michael wants to carry on William's legacy and also be a psycho murderer as well. I don't know. Michael's story needs to be fleshed out a lot more because I feel like this wasn't the best approach to this character. I feel like there could have been something different with him. But, once again guys, of course, this is all my personal opinion on the movie. If you guys have any better explanations for anything I was confused about or thought they did wrong for the movie, then do share your thoughts in the comments. Of course, I do hope that these critiques will be heard by Blumhouse, Scott Cawthon, or Emma Tammy, and they will be used to yet again further improve for the third and final movie to make it the best it can be. But for what it's worth, let it be known, I do still believe that this movie is good. I still very much enjoyed it. It's just that it's very clear that it has flaws. Anyways, this is where I'm going to wrap this video up. Thank you guys for sticking around until the end to hear my thoughts. If you haven't seen the movie yet, then, well, I mean, first of all,
The hell are you still doing here? I just told you not to watch this video if you haven't seen it yet!
and second, do still watch the movie regardless. Please do not let the critic reviews put you off for this one, because this movie was not intended for them. And if this film is just as profitable as the first movie, then Blumhouse really wouldn't care whatsoever about critic reviews or anything, because the more that us, the fans, watch it, the more possible it will be for it to succeed, meaning that FNAF 3 can begin production. And we all want to see that. We all want to see Springtrap on the big screen. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I will catch you in the next video.